Why does Israel need 2,000-pound bombs to be used in high-density populated areas?
Well, this was incredible to see. Two MSNBC contributors who are also both former Bush administration officials expressed their concern over how far right-wing Joe Biden is with his support of Israel. This really gives you the context in how out of whack Biden is with the mainstream. He is far to the right of where Washington typically is, which is already right-wing. Biden, you could argue, is no different on this issue than Donald Trump is. So I'm going to get to these clips. First, if you need any more context with what happened earlier this week with Israel's targeted strikes on 7 World Central Kitchen workers, aid workers who are delivering food in Gaza, you can go watch my video on Tuesday about that. I'll link to it below the video. It's this video here. You can search the title as well. I give you more context to what happened there. But this has since come out from the Washington Post here. U.S. approved more bombs to Israel on day of World Central Kitchen strikes. It's, this is a situation where there's a lot more focus on Israel this week because of the World Central Kitchen strikes, because it targeted foreign aid workers, including an American. Now, Israel has been launching these sorts of strikes on civilians for months. I mean, it's gotten to the point where there isn't even an accurate count right now on civilian casualties, because there is no one there to accurately count the number of casualties, because it's gotten so out of whack. So, the last recorded number is somewhere around 30,000. It's definitely well above that estimate. Some estimates are putting it around 100,000 at this point, and we're not even talking about, injuries and people displaced from their homes. It has been an ongoing bombardment. And here you have the U.S. approving more bombs on the day of that strike. Now, don't worry. Joe Biden's on the case. He is prepared to express frustrations with Netanyahu in a phone call on Thursday. These sorts of stories are purposely leaked by the White House, the Biden White House, the Biden campaign, to try and pretend that Biden is concerned about these ongoing attacks on civilians in Gaza. When ultimately, Biden has the power, as you're going to see from 2 former Bush administration officials. Biden has the power to do a hell of a lot more, including, at the very least, stop sending bombs to Israel. So the first clip here is going to be Elise Jordan. Elise Jordan, again, is currently an MSNBC contributor, a journalist, but is a former Condoleezza Rice advisor in the George W. Bush administration, was also the communications director for the National Security Council. So again, this is somebody who is traditionally right-wing, someone who is to the right of the mainstream. She isn't a Trump Republican, but she was a Republican in the Bush administration. Here are her thoughts on just how far right-wing Joe Biden is.
The president, and this has been bubbling up from behind the scenes for a while. President Biden, frankly, is furious at Prime Minister Netanyahu. But yet still his administration has not conditioned weapons sales, conditioned aid. They haven't done it yet. Now, maybe this is the moment that comes. This also happens just, we think, a week or two perhaps before this Rafah offensive, which really could be a flashpoint.
Okay, I'm so sick of hearing how upset President Biden is. The buck stops with him. If he wants to stop arms sales, if he wants to stop the bombs that are indiscriminately killing civilians, he can. He has the power. We don't need him going and his aides going to reporters and talking on background about how upset they are. What happened yesterday is still going to happen. When at Mika's conference, the head of the Palestinian Red Crescent spoke, and she was incredibly moving. This was in Abu Dhabi. And she spoke about the difficulty of aid getting in the country, period, from the north or south. And she described a process that was kind of like the TSA changing the rules every single day, going through airport security. Until those checkpoints are working and aid is going through, we don't need to be giving any more arms sales or money. It needs to stop. It needs to be conditional. It's ridiculous that it's going on unchecked and unfettered, and we're sitting around and talking how upset we are while we hemorrhage billions of dollars.
All right. I just want to first point out that that was an interesting choice of B-roll that had nothing to do with the conversation at all. They were discussing a strike on World Central Kitchen workers, foreign aid workers delivering food in Gaza, and that was the B-roll they chose to play over that conversation. Weird. Now, we are so used to seeing Republicans lobby ridiculous criticisms at Joe Biden. Oh, he's so far left. He's a socialist. He's a communist. He's spending so much money. When you look at like domestic spending in the U.S. compared to, you know, many of its allies, Canada, Europe, it's nowhere near. So to see an accurate criticism of Joe Biden from a Republican, at least a former Republican, I'm not sure where Elise Jordan currently stands. I'm sure she doesn't support Trump, but this is a George Bush Republican. To see this accurate criticism where she's discussing how Biden is even well to the right of where she is refreshing to see. And it adds, I think, important context to understanding just how out of whack Biden's position currently is. Now, I'm going to get to Richard Haass's. He's the other Republican I'll get to in a minute here. His comments on this as well, because they're also very important. Add some real context for when he was in a Bush administration. But I want to point out some important things here. So Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs shared this data point. Israel has killed more aid workers in the tiny Gaza Strip than have died in all of the countries in the rest of the world combined in any of the last 30 years. This gives you more context to how insane what Israel is doing is. And you can look, you know, this is, again, one data point. You can look at data points about journalists, data points about civilians. The same result in every single one, where what Israel is doing in Gaza is so completely to the extreme. It's the destruction they're causing is so beyond anything we have seen over the past decades, that to just, you know, just call him and say that you're frustrated, like as if this should be the reaction, clearly it's nowhere near enough. Now, this story came out, and this is wild, depressing, terrifying. So from 972 magazine here, Lavender, the AI machine directing Israel's bombing spree in Gaza. So this goes into, as Ryan Grimm summarizes here, Israel's argument that they kill so many civilians because Hamas uses human shields is torn apart by the revelation that the IDF prefers to attack its targets when they are not at home with their families. It is not Hamas using human shields. It is Israel deliberately hunting families. The information in here is wild. So I'm just going to highlight a bit of it. This investigation by 972 magazine and Local Call reveals that the Israeli army has developed an artificial intelligence-based program known as Lavender. According to 6 Israeli intelligence officers who have all served in the army during the current war on the Gaza Strip and had firsthand involvement with the use of AI to generate targets for assassination, Lavender has played a central role in the unprecedented bombing of Palestinians. The Israeli army systematically attacked the targeted individuals while they were in their homes, usually at night, while their whole families were present. So keep this in mind when Israel claims, oh, they're using human shields. Israel is deliberately attacking targets while they are with their families, rather than during the course of military activity. According to the sources, this was because, from what they regarded as an intelligence standpoint, it was easier to locate the individuals in their private houses. Additional automated systems, including one called Where's Daddy, also revealed here for the first time, were used specifically to track the targeted individuals and carry out bombings when they had entered their families' residences. It's even called Where's Daddy. This is how psychotic this government is. An intelligence officer told this report the IDF bombed them in homes without hesitation as a first option. It's much easier to bomb a family's home. The system is built to look for them in these situations. And this goes to the next story I'm going to touch on here. When it came to targeting alleged junior militants marked by Lavender, the Army preferred to only use unguided missiles, also known as dumb bombs, which can destroy entire buildings on top of their occupants and cause significant casualties. Quote, you don't want to waste expensive bombs on unimportant people. It's very expensive for the country, and there's a shortage of those bombs. And that leads to situations like this. This report just came out of Human Rights Watch. Israeli strike killing 106 civilians, an apparent war crime. So Israel forces unlawfully attacked a residential building in Gaza on October 31st, absent any apparent military target, killing at least 106 civilians, including 54 children. Human Rights Watch analyzed satellite imagery, 35 photographs, and 45 videos of the attack's aftermath, as well as other relevant photographs and videos on social media. Human Rights Watch was unable to visit the site because Israeli authorities have blocked virtually all entry into Gaza at its crossings since October 7th. Israel has repeatedly denied Human Rights Watch requests to enter Gaza over the last 16 years. Think of how much more, whether it's Human Rights Watch, whether it's other human rights organizations, how much more would be revealed if they were actually allowed in. This is why Israel blocks them from even entering. Now, here is Richard Haass. He was an assistant to President H.W. Bush and was also a close advisor to Secretary of State Colin Powell in the George W. Bush administration. Again, a Bush Republican. Here are his thoughts on where Biden stands.
And two things have happened in the last few days. One is these attacks are continuing, and yet so are U.S. arms transfers to Israel without conditions. They've been going on for 6 months. Why does Israel need 2,000-pound bombs to be used in high-density populated areas? Then, 10 days ago, what does Israel do? It expropriates 2,000 acres of land in the West Bank for settlement construction. Where is the White House reaction to that? That is how you undo even the possibility, Joe was talking about it, of one day getting to a two-state solution. If you're going to have a Palestinian state, the last I checked, states are built on territory. If the territory isn't there to build it on, you can talk about two states till the cows come home. You don't have it. Where's the administration reaction to that?
You were in the HW administration at the State Department.
At the White House.
At the White House. What would James Baker have done? And seriously, that's what we should be asking ourselves, because that was a moment when we were a diplomatic superpower.
So we confronted Israel. And if you remember at the time, Israel was subsidizing people leaving the Soviet Union, and they were going into the occupied territories. We basically said to Israel, we'll help these people to get out of the Soviet Union, but we're not going to subsidize their going into the West Bank. That forecloses options down the road. We understand you may not have a Palestinian partner today, but we want to preserve the option for the day when we might be. And the administration basically said to the Israelis, you have a choice. They made their choice. There's that economic consequences. This administration has got to have some teeth in it.
To see a Republican, or at least a George Bush Republican at the time, to see him concerned about settlement expansion was really amazing to me. And to hear that, the H.W. Bush administration pushed back against Israel when they were trying settlement expansion in the West Bank. This is of course, completely off the table when it comes to Joe Biden. Not even a consideration. This would be considered a far left policy under Joe Biden. Yet here he is, forget settlements, sitting back, allowing Gaza to be completely destroyed, bombarded. And the most people get is a phone call to Netanyahu.